love with you.
Unmute yourself and say, hello, 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 Monica, Nilsa. People are still joining and you are already here. This is so amazing. Who's ready for a beautiful lesson about transition?
Oh, wait.
Right? We're transitioning from informational speaker to motivational speaker. We're transitioning from motivational speaker to transformational speaker. We transitioned from LA to Amsterdam. We transitioned from being at a wedding and utilizing a wedding for us as a keynoter, right? For us as a speaker. So there's a lot of transitions going on, and transitions also happen as a speaker. Because, I'll wait a little bit because I know people will come in and this might be a really important place for everybody to listen in. Hey, Jamie, good morning. So let's reflect a little bit on what we've already done, right? You all know that there's a now and a new. Is it correct, by the way, Jamie, you have your talk today?
Yes.
Okay, great.
But I realized yesterday it's really a training, it's a presentation. And I was trying to make it something like I was trying to figure out storytelling and stressing out about it. And I'm not, because it really is like it really is more educational. That's what they want. But I'm trying not to freak out. And I'm going to make some breakfast, but I will be listening in right now.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you will record it, correct?
Yeah, if I can.
Yeah, maybe you get the recording, and what would be great is to record the full thing so we can watch it, and if you want, I can give you some feedback on it.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it would be great to record it no matter what, because you'll be on stage and you can shoot some amazing footage. So
right.
beautiful.
Yes.
So today we're talking about transitions. So don't feel that you need to include this, Jamie. This is extra information from afterwards. So we know now there's a now and a new. Nice. We have stories, we have teaching moments, and we have integration moments, right? The story creates the unconscious playground foundation for the teaching moments to land and for someone else to integrate this in their own life by either a question, an exercise, an open loop, a visualization, interaction, something like that. And together with all those different blocks, we build it into one masterpiece. Does that completely land for everybody? With a raise of hands. Perfect, perfect. So what we're going to talk about today is how are you going to connect those blocks, those stories, those starting pieces, the now and the new, how are you going to connect that with each other? So you already know now that a whole talk is a combination of these blocks. You also learned how to pick the right stories, that there's different ways of doing it, and you understood that there's the lens of the 3 C's, and we kind of want to have them all included, right? So there's different ways of deciding which story is the right one, and once you pick the right one, which is also a skill, so the more you do it, the better you get. We want to make sure that there's an elegance connection, and it's not so much like, okay, well now, right? So what we're going to go through today is we're going to understand how to create a good hook, how to create good transitions in between the stories, and how to close. So we are a memorable speaker that people don't only appreciate, but they want to learn more from. Is it cool? Is that cool? And we're gonna do this in some interaction, so maybe more people will join. If not, then this is going to be fun because you're gonna get a lot out of this by just practicing it out loud together with me. Because I'm gonna spill a big fat secret, okay? You might think, okay, there's a sentence that I should say over and over again, and then that's gonna be my hook forever. But Nilsa's already like shaking her head. No, 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 no. You're going to understand what makes a good hook and how this is going to be perfect for you. I'm going to show examples. We're going to discuss about these examples, what make them good, what may not resonate with you, and how can you create yours. And that's the goal, because at the end of this lesson, I'm going to ask you for next week to record your full video of 10 to 15 minutes where you explain what is it you do for an audience, which is perfectly imperfect. So if you're now thinking in your head, oh my God, I'm totally not ready yet. Last week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I shared a Drive link where everybody can upload their videos. So when you're, and this was in Jamie's case last time, because she was like, okay, I'm going to have my talk soon. So I'm going to upload it so everybody else can see it as well. And then Richie uploaded it, so you have some inspiration. And the same will work with a full video, okay? You don't need to be perfect. You just want to record something, because what happened with the people that I recorded, I watched it and I was able to give feedback on it. So it's not about doing it perfect, it's about doing it. Can we have a heck yeah for I'm willing to do it no matter what? How confused I get after this class, because you will get more information, and being confused is part of growth. And when you go through it, you will have a revelation, you will have an insight. This is, by the way, also, I just finished the book. It's called Story Brand of Donald Miller. I would highly recommend it. And he is also talking about like the flow. There's no story without a conflict. There's no story without a pain. There's no story without a problem. So by you going to some confusion actually makes you a better storyteller, because you have more empathy for the audience, because they're going through that as well. So with that said, let's start with the hook, right? We want to make sure that we open in a way that really engages people. Now, what makes a hook so important? And we can do this off mute and you can just share your ideas. Nilsa, what do you think makes a hook so important? Why is it so important for us to focus on the right hook?
Because you're taking the audience on a journey. And
Yes.
if it's flat, it gets boring. You're gonna lose them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's what we talked about with the now and the new, right? Like when you knock on someone's door, and you're gonna pick them up for an emotional roller coaster ride, and then it turns out that you're knocking on the wrong door, they're not gonna come with you. And another way of seeing it is also like, maybe you are at the door, but you're knocking like this. Psst, are you there? This is really cool. And then someone else just flew 15 hours, is like super asleep, like proper asleep. It's not gonna wake me up. You need to come with some cool bells, like, hello, this is gonna be cool. Right? So the first 7 seconds, there's some research, the first 7 seconds, people subconsciously make a decision if they're going to listen, yes or no. If they're going to pay attention, yes or no. And if the answer is no, it's really hard to get them back. Fortunately, we know how to open the engagement loops again, and you're going to learn more about that also. So you're not completely dependent on the beginning, but the beginning is very, very important. So we are going to look at 3, how many?
3
examples of hooks, and we are going to filter what is it that they're actually doing and what works and what does not. Okay, these are all people that I personally coached. Okay, so I also know why we chose certain things. There's a reason why I chose these. Okay, so let's watch them. I'm gonna share my screen and we're going to watch all 3 of them, and then we're gonna see. Can I get a thumbs up? Oh. This is weird. 1 second. Do you see the full screen? The thumbs up? Okay, I'm gonna play it right now.
Last year, I'm sitting in a Toyota Land Cruiser. It is this big 4x4, and I'm cramped up in the back of that truck, together with my team and all the special gear that we need. We leave the populated areas, and the roads become worse and worse. We hit a huge pothole in the ground. We fly through the car. I can barely hold on to our gear. I hope it stays in one piece. As the sun sets, the sky turns from blue to black. And suddenly the driver slams on the brakes. We see a group of elephants cross the road in front of us.
Tung, 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 tung. Tung, 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 tung. All right. What did we see? And welcome, Linda. We're looking at the transitions. So hook, transitions, and close. Nilsa, you raised your hand. What did we see?
It engaged me from the beginning because of the description. I was in the car, I was in the back, I was holding onto my gear. The sun came in, and then it was dark. So I was jumping with him in the car. I felt the description.
Interesting. And the cool part, and I see Jamie nod her head, the cool part is you're almost literally able to recall what he said, right? Why was it again? Because storytelling sticks. Storytelling sticks. So if we really care about our audience, do we want to use storytelling? Because then they remember it. So what Thijs is doing here is he is using a story, and he's starting immediately with that story as a hook. So he doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't say, who here, blah, blah, blah. He says, last year, I was sitting in a Toyota Land Cruiser. It was a big 4x4. And now he's painting that picture and he's bringing us along the journey. And welcome, Jessica. For Jessica and Linda, we're talking about transitions. So before you had the now video, and now we're talking about, okay, when you have the new with it, how are you going to make sure that it's one elegant ride from beginning, middle, and end? So we're talking about the transition pieces. And we're starting with the hook. We just watched one video and we analyzed what we really saw. So now we're watching a second video. There will be 3 in total. And we're going to see what makes this hook a hook. And Jamie, what did you like about this hook that you just saw?
His description was really good. Like bringing you in, putting you immediately into the scene.
Yes, very good. So what we talked about, right? It's the specificity versus broadness lens. He didn't say, I was in Africa and I was in the jungle. He said, it was 5 years ago, I was sitting in a Toyota Land Cruiser, a big 4x4. So now you start to see the picture. You're there with him, just like Nels said. There was a puddle in the ground. Okay, whoa, what's going on? So and again, like we practiced this scene a lot of times to really filter like what's too much, what's too little, what's specific, what's too specific. Because at some point you're just, it's a lot of specificity. It's like, okay, that's too much. Right? So beautiful. So the lens, and he was immediately going to one scene. He was not telling, yeah, I took a plane. I was actually in Amsterdam, but then, it was a little bit of traffic jam, so it took a little longer. That was all not necessary for us to know to get to the point. He immediately was there in the truck. So this is one opportunity. Let's look at another one. Another hook. And see what happens here.
Let me tell you a story about a tiny seed that was once full of life potential. One day it sprouted its leaves above the soil to absorb the sunlight that was essential. The little plant felt ready to discover the world, and that made it come alive. But that huge glass ceiling above it seemed like the wrong place to arrive.
All right. What did we notice here? Who would love to share their perspective? Linda, what did you notice?
It felt like she set the scene for something that wrong environment, so that you could feel that it wasn't the right place for that seat to go and that there was more to life. And I actually started to see like could personalize that, like
Mhm.
being enclosed myself and not growing. And then I'm waiting for her to give that tip to say, okay, this is what you can do if you want to grow as a person. So I guess
Yeah.
setting a stage for where her points that she's going to make in the future.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. What else? What else did we see? Someone else. Nilsa.
When she said, I'm going to share a story, I wanted to listen to it.
Mm.
So just by saying, I'm going to share a story, I was, okay, let me hear the story. Because as you said, humans love stories. Of course,
Mhm.
there's a beautiful message behind her story, like Linda mentioned. But for me, she captured my attention when she says, let me share a story.
Okay, great. This is so great. And the reason why we're brainstorming on this together, by the way, and I just want to reiterate, there is no perfect hook. There's no formula for one thing. If I would do that, I would do all of you a disservice because I would butcher your creative freedom. What I want to show you is different examples where we're all going to see what works and what doesn't, and what works for you and what doesn't. Because this woman, just for your idea, because I coach them all, so I know them all personally and I know why we chose different things. This woman, she was standing barefoot on a TEDx. She was grounding, it was really her vibe. And she started, and I don't know if you noticed, with a poem. This was a poem. And she wrote that poem. So she wrote that poem as a child, and the whole through line is how she thinks about the school system, and she starts with her perspective as a child. So she started with a poem that she loved doing as a child that comes back in the storyline later on, that was actually the reason. And then you're going to see what she did as a close, so you also see that there's some connection sometimes. So we saw Thijs, he started with a story. We see Juliette, and she starts more with Linda, right? Like she paints the picture, she starts with a poem. And then we have a third one. We're gonna watch this as well.
These are solar cars, designed by TU Eindhoven. You maybe saw them on the news once. This is a car, but these are also cars that are designed by over 40 teams of bright minds that participate in the World Solar Challenge every year. They look like this, and even like this. And this one was driving 70 kilometers per hour with 5 people inside and still charging. That means that they just couldn't get the battery down. However, do you see yourself driving in this? Taking the kids to and from school, doing groceries, doesn't seem very practical.
What do we got? What do we got? What did you notice? Jessica.
I felt like it was just showing you like this is more of like an educational speaking,
Mhm.
like she was bringing awareness on the type of car, what it is, what it's been used for, but also the practicality of you don't see yourself driving the car to take your kids and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So she's connecting some pictures, like physical pictures in this case, to okay. And the storyline of this full talk is okay. We have the most environmental friendly car. We designed it. But don't these that are absolutely amazing solar cars are amazing, you just don't see yourself driving in one. Well, we made these qualities into the car you also love to drive. So they're setting the scene, they're setting the picture. Now, I'm really curious and I want you all to think for yourself first. Don't put it in the chat yet. You're gonna put it in numbers and you're gonna show it. Which hook you liked the most? Was it number 1? Was it number 2? Or was it number 3? So think for it for yourself. And if you have it, not, please. Okay, then show your finger numbers with fingers in 3, 2, 1. I have one, someone missed one. And Nilsa, you also have one. Interesting.
What I'm saying, I'm thinking that we can use all three
Okay, great. Why? Why is that?
because different audience, different connection.
Yeah. Let's watch number one more time because there was a lot of votes, and then Jessica, you can see it as well. And then I want you to understand why I asked that question.
Last year, I'm sitting in a Toyota Land Cruiser. It is this big 4x4, and I'm cramped up in the back of that truck, together with my team and all the special gear that we need. We leave the populated areas, and the roads become worse and worse. We hit a huge pothole in the ground. We fly through the car. I can barely hold on to our gear. I hope it stays in one piece. As the sun sets, the sky turns from blue to black. And suddenly the driver slams on the brakes. We see a group of elephants cross the road in front of us.
So that was number one. Now, a lot of people voted for number one, and I'm really curious why. Jamie, what was your reason?
So he obviously is more dynamic in his sound, in his speed, in his body language. He's not just standing there. Sorry, my screen is so messed up.
We see you.
There we go. That's a little better. Anyway, he's more engaged. He's like actually telling a story, not just like, so let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. I see a lot of head nods. Does it resonate with everybody? Do you think, Jamie, he practiced the most or the least?
I don't know. I think he got out
Does
of
it
his
come
head.
across like rehearsed?
I think he got out
or
of
does
his
it come
head.
across
Not
natural?
rehearsed. Not rehearsed, but out of his head.
Okay. So you don't feel it's rehearsed, but it comes from his head.
Not in his head.
Not in his head. Okay, great. So now we start to see some sort of formula. So, they're all shiny. And I know where they started. They're all doing like a 10 out of 10, right? Sometimes it's really not nice to compare people with each other and rather compare them with their own trajectory. But we're here to learn what you can learn from it and how you can start with a compelling opening. And what I saw watching so many hooks, I see 3 different questions or lenses we can ask ourselves to create a great hook. And the first one is exactly what Jamie says, is, are we engaged immediately? You've probably heard the saying, like, when you confuse, you lose. And with a hook, it's the same. Even if it's a great opening and it's really well thought of, if the audience is like, what is this exactly, you're confusing them, and it's hard to get them back. So the first thing is, are we engaged immediately? The second thing is, does this make sense for the transformation? For example, with the first one, he's talking about a huge puddle on the ground. He's seeing elephants. He is in a forest, in a jungle. That is basically completely connected with the through line because he created a tech solution. He calls himself a nerd behind a keyboard, and he was really looking for something that he can contribute to the world. And he found a way where he can use his coding skills to protect elephants in the rainforest. Like, how cool is that, right? So it's so in line with his whole story. Juliette, the second one with the poem. She loved creating poetry when she was a kid. And the third one, it was about the car, right? Now, and I saw you put something in the chat, Jessica. Yes, I feel the first one did a great job bringing you into the story. So we now start to see there's also different ways of doing it, right? There's different ways of making a poem work. Like, imagine you like the engaging part, you like the hands. Could you make a poem and bring that with the same energy, with the same lens of dialogue, with the same lens of specificity, and still using your hands? What I know from these people is that Thijs practice the most. What we sometimes think is when we rehearse a lot, we come across very robotic. But the truth is, when you sound robotic, you did not practice enough, right? We have this valley. So when we don't practice, we can come across really amazing and organic and in flow. But if we somehow get nervous or something and we forget what we said, we actually forget it because we did not really rehearse it. So there's a big risk of uncertainty because we don't know if we're going to flow and be authentic or lose it and be a little awkward. Then we start to practice a lot. And the more you practice, the more robotic you're going to sound. And the more rehearsed it's going to sound because you're rehearsing it. The beauty is your body starts to know what you're going to say. So when stuff happens and your blood goes from here to here because you're in your, what is a normal, logical, human physical experience that we just go through, your body can still remember what you said. When we keep practicing, your body will still know and you're above the content and now you can flow with the audience. So when people sound like it's so super easy for them and it comes from the heart, but they're still so structured, they probably are the ones who practiced the most of everybody. And because they do, they can come from their open heart. And that's what you see with all love is also the difference between, okay, this is kind of the picture and this is kind of the picture and this is what's going to happen. This is the story. So there's a different way of owning it in someone's body, which brings a different energy, which brings a different engagement, and then combined with the lenses we already talked about, with a dialogue, with a specificity, it really, really helps. And what I would love for you to see through these hooks is that there's not one perfect way, right? So you can start with a story, just like Thijs did. Juliet loves poetry. Would I advise Thijs to do that? No, it's not authentic to him, but it's authentic to Juliet. And that is the third lens of creating a nice hook. Does this feel like you? Does this feel like you? I sometimes start reels or stuff with something like this. Do you feel like this sometimes? You know, and then I just starts to riff. Is this for everybody and does this feel authentic for everybody? No. But now Laurie is teaching it, so maybe you should model it because Laurie is doing it too. No. Be you. Be you. What makes sense for you? Do you love to start with a story? Do you love to share with who here is here because 1, 2, 3? Do you love to start with maybe Nilsa, a radical fact? Does this feel like you? And then through practice, through recording the videos and getting feedback on it, we're going to see if it lands or not. Or if it's really in tune with the whole transformation. There's no one formula, but there's a couple of questions you can ask yourself. Is it immediately engaging? Is this in line with the transformation, with the aim that we want to achieve? And third, does this feel like you? Can I get a head nod if that lands? Super. What we're going to look through now is how is this going to happen exactly the same, but then all the way at the end. So how are you going to close a keynote? And why is this so important? With a keynote, with a podcast, with a reel, with the question, what is it that you do? Why is it so important to have a clear end before we start looking at it? Why is it so important? Jamie.
Because you have to close the loop that you opened.
Yes. Yes. We want people to feel satisfied afterwards. Not like, huh? We want them to feel, oh, this is the end. The most awkward end that I ever had was this. So, yeah, this was the end.
That's gonna be me in like 2 hours, so that's it.
So we would love to see what is a sentence you can end with. Because the certainty of the beginning, like if there's one thing I would always advise to maybe not literally put it in a script, but practice it over and over and over again, is the first 30 seconds to 1 minute. Because when you're standing there, you don't have to think about it, you start to riff. You start to to tell it with full conviction, because that's the part you practice like crazy. And with that conviction, you bring people in a flow. And the same with the end. And I sometimes still do that, because then I'm like so in the flow and I'm like, oh, now I need to wrap up. And then it's like, okay, so blah, 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 blah. And when you can own the end, that's where people feel this satisfaction, like, okay, I really want more of this. Wow. And then there's an automatic like reflex of like, okay, this is the end. So it's not like people think, is this the end or not? Oh, this is the end and I'm gonna appreciate it. So let's see 3 examples of ends of the talks, and these are the same people, so you're going to see some patterns in what they've done before.
Many big challenges out there that desperately need our help. And I know it can be overwhelming to try and take on these challenges, but try to look at it as I look at complex software problems. Try to break it up into smaller, more manageable parts, and then I'm sure that there are plenty of pieces for all of us to pick up, so we can solve these puzzles together. Thank you.
All right, what did we see? What did we notice? Linda, what's your observation here?
He brought it all together, included everybody in the journey, that
Mhm.
everybody had, is part of the solution.
Yes, yes, beautiful. So what he's doing in the through line is, or in the storyline, he says, you know, this, I had my coding skills, and now he says everybody has a skill. So I use my coding skills to solve this problem. What skill do you have that you can solve a problem with?
Right.
So now he's bringing it together and says, okay, now we have to do something about this. Beautiful. Well done. What else? Jessica, is there anything you would like to add?
No, I feel like Linda hit it. I mean, I felt that he was basically ending it with sharing about how we can all choose to be part of the solution. He has figured out a solution, but kind of like what she said, you know, everybody has a special gift and we can all contribute to that solution.
Yeah, beautiful. And if Thijs would be here, what would you say that was really nice of that specifically? How he did it?
I felt that the way, like, I'm very curious to hear the whole thing now. I felt that the way he spoke, he really invites that open space to join in on the story. Just his energy, he flowed so naturally that you can feel his passion for what he was talking about. And as he's talking about it, he's using his hand gestures, which you do the same thing, which is what called me to you, is that you have this flow. It's like a nice little ebb and flow talking about the journey. But then at the end, just seeing the way he kind of talks about it with like this warm feeling of how you can step up, you know, join in on this solution. You know, it makes you feel like, yeah, I'm in. What is like, you know, I want to know more. I want to understand more.
Yes. Oh,
Felt
that's
like
beautiful.
Yeah.
And if there would be a thing, Jessica, that you would do differently, or think, you know, what if that could be a fun experiment to try out to maybe even have more impact? Would there be something coming up for you? And if so, what would that be?
Speaking on my behalf, like if I were there instead speaking, or
If I would be Thijs and I'm like, okay, Jessica, I'm here to do it even better next time. Do you have anything?
I
Any
think you did a
suggestions?
great job. Yeah, I mean, I felt like he did such a great job. Like I was already engaged, you know, he definitely called me the most. His energy was just,
Yeah.
you just felt his heart. I felt like you could just
Yeah.
feel his heart into what he was talking about. Whereas the other two, um, I could tell they were into their story, but it felt rehearsed. It felt a little bit more structured, and it didn't have that nice natural flow. And I don't think that there was anything wrong with the other two. It's just that his just flowed so nicely. At least it connected with me, that I felt like I'm in, like I'm engaged. I
Wow.
want to hear more.
This is so cool, right? Because what I'm hearing you say is it was not so much his quote unquote perfect script. It was actually like, did he make some crazy grammar mistakes like Laurie? He probably did. Was it accent perfect? No, it wasn't. Was he perfect as a speaker? And did he come from the heart? And was he one of the most authentic humans? And is he like this on the street? Yes. Right. So
Yeah.
what does this say for all of you as well? Right. Maybe it's not this perfection that sometimes still creeps in our mind, like, oh, our video is not ready, because later I'm going to ask you all to create a full recording, okay? Because now you're starting to understand the hook, the close, the transitions. So I'm going to ask you to record the full thing. And it would be only natural if you're Danny Danger, Lazy Larry, or Consistent Chris are having some opinions about it, and that's totally okay. And what you start to see more and more, and I want to see you all see so much more leverage every single time you watch something. It's like, what makes it click? Why do you resonate with this person? Because he's authentic, because he flows, because he actually cares, you know, and he actually does. And who in this group really, really cares? What if that's visible for people? And then you sometimes, and now I clumsily find a word, clumsily, I don't even know if it's really correct word, but clumsily share a story. And then and people are like a little bit like, where's she going? Oh, but she does this. So it's like the coolness story, or the community story, or the credibility. So we start to learn more about you, even though the storytelling skills might not be as optimal as possible with all the knowledge that you already gained. But it's you just picking a story from the heart and saying, you know, guys, I really care about this, and I would love to bring you on a transformation. And I will be imperfect because so are you, and therefore we're just vibing because we're all human beings, and we don't like perfection anyways, because then we don't believe it's possible for us. So this is, I think, a beautiful, beautiful recognition of Thijs, who is just himself. And I'll share the full story with all of you. I actually did a full analysis, so you can also see me going through his whole talk, and I just did the same with Juliette. So you can watch both if you want to, so you can see, okay, like an extra layer. Okay, this is what I learned. Okay, now this is applied to this specific talk. So you have some examples. What I would say to Thijs now is, okay, Thijs, we're all ready. We want something from you. We don't want, and this is a room of 500 people live, we don't want to find you in the bar to have a conversation because there's 500 people, okay? I don't want to miss this opportunity. So what I would say to Thijs now, which by the way is not allowed in a TEDx talk, so he did absolutely perfect. But for all of you, I would say, okay, what's the QR code we're gonna scan? Is it following you on social media? Is it downloading your free resource? Because we're there. We want something with you now. If we want something, we at least want to have the opportunity that makes it really easy for us. And we don't want to find him in the hallway. We don't need to email the organizer, what's the last name of Thijs? Because there are so many Thijses on social media, I cannot find him. And then the organizer forgets, or you forget to email, the momentum goes down, and potential investors, potential co-creators are getting lost in the storm. And that's the reason you're standing there, is not to just be inspirational, it's to be transformational, because when people spend more time with you, they have a bigger transformation. So that's the only thing I would say, except that in this specific case, it was not allowed with the rules of TED. But there are some workarounds on this as well. You can say something like, as a coach, I experienced, Jamie, as an author, right? So now you're already nudging people, oh, I have a book, even though you're not selling it. So you give people something. Okay, there was a long thing to stand with this. So let's look at the other two and see what we can learn. There we go.
Children grew up side by side with food and trees, and everywhere you looked, you saw animals and humming bees. A whole generation of holistic thinkers and doers took care of their home, and they passed on the earth to their children as the start of a new poem.
Wow. We're gonna do these two a little quick. Nilsa, what did you see? What did you notice?
With the first one, I noticed the energy of the hook. And with this one, I'm noticing her sentiment toward this topic of earth, of holistic. So it was really, what's the word? It was a little even emotional and sentimental.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And what she did is she used the same strategy that she used in the beginning and the end. So this is again a poem. So what she's doing is she's using the beginning and the end, and she's doing the same thing, but throughout she doesn't. So the audience is also kind of like triggered, like, oh, this is probably the end. So this is also for her to close the loop, which I think is incredibly well done. And the fun fact, we're all different learning styles, right? I think we talked about this a little bit in the beginning. This is very kinesthetic. So the beauty of kinesthetic is that she's connecting to other kinesthetics. If she stays in this energy for the whole entire talk, she is exactly connecting with around 30% of the audience. And other people might think, okay, this was great, but I didn't learn anything. That's the auditorian. Or the visuals, this was great, but I kind of lost after minute 3. So the beauty is she is connecting with the kinesthetics, and then the art becomes in throughout the talk is to bring that level of contrast, which is what we talked about yesterday because of your win, Jessica, is that contrast is always what we want to find. There's no story without a problem. There's no hero without struggle. There's no fireworks without slowing down. So we really want to find the contrast. And this is an art, you all. This is something you become better and better in while doing it. This is not something you want to prepare from the beginning on because you're going to make it so complicated for yourself. We just want to go and become better every single time. So last video for the close.
So sometimes people say to me, nice project you're working on. And although their intentions are great, I always feel a little bad when hearing this. You know why? Because it is not just a project anymore. It is a solution for this huge problem that we're facing as mankind. We need to have all hands on deck to make the energy transition possible as soon as possible. So together with 500 engineers, Liz and I, are on a mission to let people drive that same distance of 1 light year in kilometers, but then purely on the sun. Thank you.
Jamie, what do we notice?
They pull the vision of where they want like their company to go through so that you're buying into their mission.
Yeah, that was really good. So there with the two of them, one person was part of the, or like it has the problem herself. So that's kind of how it was framed. Like one person, her house got flooded because of global warming. And then the other person, she was part of the tech team that actually created this car all the way from the beginning. So they really used both personas in the talk to shine different lights. And she's like, this is my mission. This is where we're going. People buy from who you are and who they want to become, right? So when you share the mission, it becomes bigger than you. It becomes bigger than this is a TEDx talk. So that's a beautiful, beautiful way to end. And this is what you can implement as well, right? We now saw different ways. We saw people who used stories, people who summarized it in the end, people who you know, in a different area would have put a QR code up and say, this is how we can contribute. And this is where we're going, right? So you're not just part of a QR code and following, you're part of a transformation that has a mission to achieve all of this. So when I would look at a hook, a close, I would have 3 different questions again. And the first one is a bit of the same as the beginning. Is this an obvious end? Is it not as awkward as I made it sometimes? Like, hey, hello, I'm finished now. Please clap for me. This was it. You want to make it obvious for people. The second one, does this feel congruent with the transformation? Are you making the end for the talk you actually did, or now you create a whole new different thing? And then the third, does this feel like you? We learn now through different ways that when you come from an open heart, when you're authentic, when you're truly there with the people, you create the most emotional engagement. Who remembers the story that I told about the robot and the ducks? That when a robot had this automated, how do you say it? Like it was programmed in a randomized way. It was making a random movement. But when ducks saw the robot, when they were born and they thought this was actually the mom, and then they programmed the robot with the same randomized program, but they put the ducks in one end of the spectrum, the randomized robot actually changed his scores and was with the ducks. So if love can change a robot from a programmed pattern, then what can it do from human to human? So your authentic heart is your superpower. Your personality is your superpower. You already know now that you can pick stories based on your personality. So you're showing people who you are. And now we're just putting the last pieces together of beginning and end. And the beauty is when you can think of these two in the beginning, it will give you so much peace as well. Because you know you will start with conviction and you will end with clarity. Make sense? Super. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the middle. Because you have different stories. You can have one story. You can have different stories. And we want to make sure that when you tie them all together, there's a logical flow. And I want to share 3 different ways how you can put them all together. Cool? Are we cool with that? A little bit more energy, but then, or a little bit more content, and then you have all the information that you need to create your full talk. All right, transitions. We're going to watch 3 clips from Thijs. They're all different transitions, and we're going to figure out what it is. Okay, so you're gonna listen to what is the way he puts 2 pieces together. If you don't know it, you know he did it really well. So if you don't know it, it's not you, it's Thijs doing incredibly well.
And the worrying starts. Are there no bugs in my code? Did I configure everything correctly? I think about home, about my family. I remember a conversation with my daughter Julia. She's now 12 years old. And she asked me, so Dad, what are you going to do in Africa for 3 weeks? And I say, I'm going to deploy 8 cameras. And she's like, do you need that much time for that? And I try to explain to her what we are trying to achieve, but clearly she's not impressed. Teenagers, right? But the worst thing is, I start to believe it myself. As I'm lying in my bed, I think, what if this thing doesn't work at all? What am I even doing here? Who am I to think that I can help with this?
I heard a
Oh, I'm not muted.
What do you think, Jamie? What was the about? What did you notice?
That he made it personal. He drew in his own self-doubts that the audience may be having themselves.
Yeah, very good. When we look at the lenses of telling, he was doing the dialogue. And I think he didn't say, and I had some self-doubt. He said, I think, aren't there bugs in my code? So he's verbalizing the thought, which makes people experiencing it in the now, which triggers a different program, which helps them remember. And specifically to the connection sentence, because he is connecting his own self-doubt to a moment where he thinks back of his daughter Julia. So he's basically in the moment now, then he goes into the past, he comes back, and he goes further where he left off, which is very elegant. So he's using the storyline, he goes to another story, and he goes back to the storyline. Now, what was the way he connected it? If you don't know, this is a big compliment. Who had an idea? Oh
What's
my
your
God,
question
guys.
exactly?
So what was the either sentence, word, or thing he did to connect those two pieces? Like, what was the way he was using a transition? What was basically the glue between the stories, which made you feel that it was one big thing, but it was actually not?
The cameras, when the daughter says, why are you gonna take so long in Africa with the 8 cameras?
Yeah, he's lying in his bed and he's thinking, I'm wondering about my daughter Julia. Right? So there's a sentence, very good. Let's see. He says, I'm lying in my bed and I'm thinking about my daughter Julia. So the lying in the bed happens now in the bed, and then he's wondering, what would my daughter think? My daughter Julia. And now he just immediately goes to that scene and then he immediately transitions back.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I call a connecting sentence. Okay? There's 3 types. This is a connecting sentence. And some examples is, for example, and this brings me back to, or that's where I discovered ... Now, why am I telling you this? So there's kind of basic sentences that you can pick and choose from and plot them into your story. So you have your now and your new, you pick your story, and then you're picking from the box of transition options to tie them all together. I know this is new information, but does this start to feel like, oh, this makes sense? I might not know how yet for me, but this factually makes total sense. If not, tell it too, okay? Because we're here to understand all of these things. So you have a story, you have another story, or you have the now and you have the new, and you want to organically move from one to the other. You want to organically move from your story to the call to action, and you want to transition. So this is one. There's one more, or actually 2 more. I'll share them with you. This is another video, and we're looking for what is the way he's connecting both pieces together. What is the thing that he does?
Morning, I wake up in the middle of the African rainforest. As far as the eye can see, there's nature, largely untouched by humans. I am in Gabon. And Gabon is a very important country in Central Africa for the forest elephants.
This was a sneaky one. Who noticed? What was the way, Jamie?
Is it when he says where he's at, where he takes you out of, he's in the rainforest, but then he actually makes it specific to his location?
Yeah, so what he says is like, we're in Gabon.
Yeah.
And Gabon is blah, blah, blah,
Is,
and
yeah.
now he's going to facts.
It's
So
the
he
launch
starts with a
pad.
story, and now he's more with a teaching point. And the thing he does is he just says the word Gabon. This is what I call a connection word. So it could be a word that he's using, such as Gabon. It can also be so. or even though. Like it's one word to connect one piece with another piece. Are there any questions so far?
Does it have to be repeated or he can use it once? Because you said he said Gabon twice, but then you said the connection word can be so or even though.
Yeah. So it depends. So let me do it. So we're in Gabon. And that's actually a country, blah 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 blah. So that could be something like this as well. It could also be, and we're in Gabon. Gabon is the country, blah 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 blah. We just want to make sure there's time for the audience to like connect with what we're all
reiterated.
saying. Yeah.
Okay.
And the same can be achieved by saying it like this, right? And we're in Gabon. That's actually the country where.
Mm-hmm.
One last example. Re up for that? Yippee! One more! Yay! Here we go.
Long nails sticking through them, scattered throughout the plantation, hoping that the elephants would step on them. Or sometimes they throw spears or use other weapons, sometimes killing these elephants. Now, by now you might be wondering, who is this guy? Is he a biologist? No. The truth is, I didn't even know the human-elephant conflict was a thing, or that Gabon was a country, until I started working on this project.
Last one. I will reveal it. This is what I call mind wandering. He says something like, you might be wondering, who is this guy? You might be wondering, why is she telling that story? You might be thinking, what does this have to do with me? What you're doing is you're saying to people, this is probably what's in your head. The beauty is that unconsciously they will say yes, so they're re-engaged again. And second is if they did not think it, they're now thinking, maybe I was thinking that. So now you're directing the conversation again. Now you're the leader from stage. Now you're bringing people from one place to the next place, to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. So I know it's time, so I want to wrap it up for people who have a hard stop, so there's a clear end, and then we will do some tapping for the people who would love to do that. Is you have a lot of stuff. You have the now, you have the new. That's the science of the transformation. You know the art of the transformation, where you have different stories. You know how to optimize the stories by specificity versus broad, dialogue versus no dialogue. You know how to pick stories because we want to make sure there's some credibility involved. There's some coolness involved. There's some community involved. This is the art. This is the part where you might be like, Laurie, it sounds so easy, and it's not. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. This is practice. This is practice over and over again. But the more you practice it, the easier this will get, the more natural this will be, the more flexible and adaptive you will be in the moment. So when someone asks, can you share on stage, you're immediately thinking very fast, like, what stories am I going to pick? Bum, go. And you can do it in 1 minute, in 2 minutes, in 15 minutes. It's a matter of practice, but you know how to do it. And now we're understanding, okay, in order for us to collect this as a whole, we have an aim, right? We put that in the beginning. And now we want to start, we want to glue it all together and want to finish in a certain way. That's the last specific information pieces that you needed for you in order to create the full video. And that's what I love to invite you to do this week. To really create the full video that you're going to perform for your group, for this group in week 8. So we have still like 3.5 weeks to practice that full version. And every single time is going to get a little bit more clear. Every single time your body saves it in a different place. Every time you get a little bit more proof that this is a skill you're learning and it's not something you want to do perfect, because there is not such a thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the full video of Juliette and full video of Duncan with all of you, the way I analyzed it as well. So you can look at the original, you can look at my thoughts around it. So it starts to land in a deeper way. And I really want you to know that when you get more confused watching it, then that's okay. This truly is a new skill. And we're learning it in a step-by-step approach that is the most easy to learn. But you have to go through it as well. And we're here for you. So if you have any questions or whatsoever, put it in the WhatsApp group. Jamie, you're going to kick ass today. You're going to record it, and feel free to share that recording so we
I'll
can
try
help
to
you.
record it. It's with the Navy, so I don't know what
Ah,
rules.
that's true. Yeah, maybe
It's-
you can do an audio recording just for yourself. So you know, and maybe you can ask the host, like, this is really for me to upgrade. And if it's not possible, it's not possible. But it's always nice to have it just for yourself.
Yes.
Like I one time I stood on stage and I was so like amazed by everything that I completely forgot what I said. Like, and watching myself back, I'm like, oh, I did actually quite great. I'm so happy about that.
I'm hoping,
Right?
I'm gonna
So,
actually run
it's
and
a-
practice it before I have to get on, but
There you go. So, any questions before we do the tapping? So you're gonna do something that you totally not expect, which is grab your phone and create a breakthrough video, which is kudos for everybody who did that immediately. Jessica, that was amazing. Well done. And we're gonna keep the momentum up by keep doing it. So we're chilling with Danny Danger, Lazy Larry, Consistent Chris. We're seeing new rules. We're seeing new ways of success. So we're creating another video. And then what I'm gonna ask all of you is to create that full video. It would be around, because there are people who always love to know, around 10 minutes, around 15 minutes. It's not going to be 20 minutes. It's not going to be 3. Okay. So don't feel too literal about the amounts, but overall it's around, like, let's say 8 and 12, 10 to 15, around that scope. And you want to upload it in the link that you already got, which I will also put again in the replay section and in our WhatsApp group, so you know where to upload it. If there's any questions in between, we are here for you. We are here for you. So you can ask us all the time, okay? With that said, Jamie, kick some ass. We're gonna do some last stepping, and then we're seeing each other in the WhatsApp at next week. Good luck.
bye. Thank you.
All right, Monica. This is
Sweet.
some
All
quick
right. Let's do a little tapping. So what I noticed, there was a lot of new details today. And there's a lot of like, oh my God, will I get the right story? Will I have the right piece? Will I be able to address everybody and keep them engaged and keep them on the path? What I feel like is the most important thing to kind of integrate today in today's class is the question that came at each section, the beginning and the end. Does this feel like you? Because this is the most important part of being a transformational speaker. And so part of what I'm looking for is, as we work being a transformational speaker and using these opportunities to grow, is that what if it's possible that this is now an identity upgrade? Because what I know is that when we think, what we perceive, what we think, and what we do all shapes from our identity and what we believe about ourselves. And so what I'm seeing today is the most important question: does this feel like you? Which you is this going to feel like? What identity? Is it going to be the Danger Danny? Is it going to be the Consistent Chris? Or is it going to be the you who's becoming this amazing transformational speaker with a huge heart, with an important message? And that person is the one who you're going to talk to ask about, what questions do I ask? What transitions do I make? What stories do I choose? How do I begin? And then tapping on your collarbone points. This is just part of taking some of the stress out of, there's a lot of moving parts in here to choose from. But what is the most important is, if I'm actually coming from my best self, my highest self, does this feel like me? Which me is the person writing this speech? What is the future person I see on that stage or on that Zoom screen or in front of that audience or on that podcast? Which me is that one that shows up and then knows which stories? And will I feel safe being that me? Will the people in the tribe who know me in my community go, is that you? Oh my God, you're like so stepped up. Is it safe to be a bigger me, to be a different me, to be an upgraded me, to be a transformational speaker me? And then tapping underneath your eyes. This is the stomach meridian point. This is again where a lot of people just feel a lot of stress right before they get up to speak, but also before you're writing your speech and before you're preparing to do your recordings. Oh, is it possible that this upgraded me, this transformational speaker me, from this point forward, I choose to believe it's possible that I am a transformational speaker? And it's kind of obvious and which stories show up and how I am able to create that emotional journey and how I'm able to move easily, use my hands. I think as you were saying, Jessica, it's like the ease at which Duncan was moving around. Is it possible that this upgraded me? That's because I do it in a normal conversation. So whether I'm on camera or whether I'm on stage or whether I'm on a podcast or whether I'm in front of a bunch of people in a small group, what if it's possible that what feels like me is the big heart that I am and the big person I came here to be? What if it's possible that the people I'm here to lead, the people I'm here to share with, the people I'm here to help them through their transformation, this big heart is actually where I know the me is from. So when I choose my stories, I'm choosing for the best me, the transformational me that's here to change hearts and minds. And then tapping on your crown, knowing that you came into a class on being a transformational public speaker because you have a path and a purpose and you have a message. And so all these little pieces today about beginnings and ends and transitions and connection words and connection thoughts, knowing that that's just, that's just part of the practice. That's part of the discipline. That's part of the learning, and you're going to integrate it. But who is capable of integrating this with ease and joy and with Lori's words, fun and ease and impact? That's a transformational speaker that you're becoming more and more and more. Every time you're on these classes, every time you're writing, every time you're recording, every time you're holding your phone up to yourself and recording something in here, you are becoming this bigger you, this higher self, this transformational speaker, this person who brings that huge heart and that important message. Yeah. And having the gratitude that we actually had these opportunities to be on stages, to be on camera, to be in front of people, to share what our souls came here on planet Earth to share. We get to do this now and do it this way with Lori's guidance, just being able to do it with this kind of just joy and ease and flow that looks so easy, but we know it takes some time and some doing and some homework and some practice, and that you're in the right place with the right team and the right people supporting you in this journey and this transformation of your own self and for your audiences. There we go. And back to you, Lori.
It's fun to remember that there's a lot of steps involved, and in the end, it's just you being you. It's just you being you. And the more you become comfortable being that version in the most vulnerable place on earth, I'm going to tell you also around stages, they're going to find you. It's not something you have to put a lot of attention on. It's just going to magnetically find you because you are the person. You are the person with a personality, because we all have a personality. Sometimes there's just a lot of dust when we are in the outside world. There's just a lot of dust when we're seen. There's just a lot of dust when we're quote unquote on stage being the speaker. What if it's nothing more than a play that we're all playing, and that you are the head character, and the more you are, the more transformation you're creating, not only for yourself, but also for the audience. And that's the journey we're on. So, with that said, grab your phone, make an aha moment and breakthrough video, share it in a WhatsApp group, and we're seeing each other next week. I'm gonna share the 2 talks with you and the Drive link, and I would love to see the full video. Who's committed to upload a video, even though it's you sharing, Lori, I feel so overwhelmed and I'm just gonna blurb for 10 minutes. I'm gonna celebrate you for doing that. Okay, so who's committed to upload an MP4 file? There you go. There you go. And then we're going to analyze it all together. I'm going to do some hot seats Q&A, and we're becoming more of us. Big hug. You're all incredible. I feel so privileged to be part of your transformation, because you're going to give it forward, and there's nothing more fulfilling. So with that said, have a great rest of your day, and I see your videos coming up. Ciao,
Thank you.
ciao.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.